You have never gone a single day of your life without knowing where your next meal is coming from. You have never slept without walls between you and the dark. And somewhere underneath your comfort, something in you has gone soft in a way your ancestors would not recognize. This isn't a lecture about how easy you have it. It's stranger than that. Ancient humans faced daily conditions that would break most modern people within a week. And yet, the evidence suggests they weren't more anxious, more depressed, or more psychologically fragile than you. In many ways, they appear to have been sturdier. So what did they have that you don't? Not less suffering. More of it, actually, delivered constantly and without warning. Anthropologist Christopher Boehm spent decades studying egalitarian hunter-gatherer societies, the kind of small, tightly bonded groups that represent how humans lived for the overwhelming majority of our history. What he documented wasn't a culture of stoic loners gritting their teeth through hardship alone. It was the opposite. Survival depended entirely on the group, and the group depended on constant, unglamorous cooperation, food sharing, conflict resolution, and social pressure that kept any single person from carrying a burden by themselves for long. Here's the part that should surprise you. That constant entanglement with other people, the complete absence of privacy, the total inability to simply retreat and be alone with your problems may be exactly what built their psychological resilience. Consider what journalist and author Sebastian Junger uncovered while researching his book on tribal societies and modern soldiers returning from war. Communities facing genuine hardship, famine, conflict, physical danger often report lower rates of depression and suicide than wealthy, peaceful modern societies with far greater material comfort. Junger's explanation wasn't that suffering is good for you. It's that suffering shared inside a tightly bonded group produces something modern life rarely offers: the felt certainty that you are never carrying anything alone. Think about the last time you struggled with something difficult. Did you reach out immediately, or did you quietly try to handle it by yourself first, alone in a room, scrolling through a phone that connects you to thousands of people while somehow leaving you more isolated than any hunter-gatherer ever was? That's the strange inversion at the center of this story. You have more contact with more human beings than any ancestor could have imagined, and yet you likely process your hardest moments in near total solitude. Your ancestors had less privacy than you can probably fathom, and it may have saved them from exactly the kind of quiet unraveling so many modern people experience. But there's a second piece to this, one that goes beyond community. It has to do with what hardship itself actually does to a mind that's forced to face it directly. Psychologist Richard Tedeschi, who helped establish the field of research into what's now called post-traumatic growth, found something that complicates the assumption that suffering simply damages people. In many cases, people who endure serious adversity and who have some framework or community to process it within come out the other side with greater psychological flexibility, deeper relationships, and a clearer sense of what actually matters to them. Difficulty, faced rather than avoided, can build capacity rather than only eroding it. Now consider what modern comfort has quietly done in the opposite direction. You can avoid almost every form of discomfort you encounter. Hungry, cold, bored, physically challenged. Each of those has an immediate, low-effort remedy within arm's reach at nearly every moment of your day. Your ancestors didn't have that option. Hardship wasn't something they occasionally opted into for personal growth. It was simply Tuesday, arriving without asking permission, over and over for an entire lifetime. That relentless exposure functioned like a kind of psychological conditioning your body never got the chance to develop. Athletes call it training load. A body needs enough resistance to grow stronger, not zero, and not so much it collapses. Somewhere in the last century, in wealthy parts of the world, the resistance mostly vanished. Not because people got weaker on purpose, but because comfort became so cheap and so available that avoiding difficulty stopped requiring any real cost. So the muscle atrophied, not from injury, from disuse. Here's where it gets even stranger. This isn't really an argument for suffering more, or for romanticizing hardship you didn't choose and don't need. Your ancestors weren't happier because they struggled. They were more resilient because struggle was inseparable from a community that made sure nobody faced it in total isolation, and because the difficulty itself, faced repeatedly, built a kind of tolerance modern life rarely demands anymore. You've inherited a nervous system built for that world, the tight bonds, the shared burden, the unavoidable friction, and you're running it inside a world engineered to remove nearly all of those inputs at once. No wonder something feels off, even when nothing in your actual life has technically gone wrong. Think about what you actually do with your hardest days now. You mute the notification. You close the tab. You retreat to a quiet room and try to think your way out of a feeling that was never designed to be solved by thinking alone in a quiet room. Your ancestors didn't have that option, and increasingly, it looks like that wasn't a disadvantage. Maybe the goal was never to avoid every hard thing that comes your way. Maybe it was to make sure you never had to face it by yourself, and to trust that some difficulty, endured with people around you rather than isolated from them, might leave you sturdier rather than smaller. So the next time something hard finds you, before you retreat into the room alone with the door closed, ask yourself an honest question. Are you protecting yourself, or are you doing the one thing your ancestors almost never had the option to do?